Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So, people might make the mistake of thinking I've been harsh to Israelis and Jews, what have you. But I've maintained a firm stance since around October 7th in 2023, when that very tragic incident happened, that there are other actors in this. And they're pulling Israel's strings to some degree, and they're pulling Hamas's strings. I'm very convinced that there are other nations involved here, and that if we look at the history of Israel and how it was established, we see that people who you might describe as globalists came together to create Israel to be a kind of outpost for Western thinking and Western political activities, Western interests. And I'm convinced that the globalists are best described as whites and Jews and LGBT people, and that the Jews aren't entirely to blame for the atrocities that have been committed by Israel. I think we all know how unreasonable some Muslims can be as well, and the people who are pulling their strings knew that this thing was going to have a certain appearance to it, and they knew that people would see through it to a certain degree, and they knew a lot of people, because of very potent psychology, would think that the buck stops with Israel. It's a very sad thing that people don't understand that there's certain European powers involved in this, that America's involved in this, and that they have blood on their hands. And one of the most unfortunate things is they're trying to shift the blame. People need to understand that God doesn't miss a thing. One of my favorite parts in the Bible is when it's written that, does he who formed eyes not see? Right? God made eyes in the first place, right? It's a part of a pattern in nature. Not just human eyes, other eyes, birds' eyes. The amazing vision of eagles and falcons. Animals detect things in various ways, right? Some of them detect things based on heat signatures, on heat. I'm convinced that there are people pulling Israel's strings. And we have to do a root cause analysis here, and we have to be concerned with justice. Peace is not as important as justice, but we must always look to nonviolent ways first. I'm also convinced that we can solve the problems in the world on that kind of world level, right? Not on a deeper spiritual level, but on that world level, with organization, with pressure, with greed shaming, if you will, changing the way people date and the way they think, the way they treat each other. And if people don't do these things, and they share in the blame, they share in the guilt, it's not enough to be controlled opposition. You must break the chains of the thinking that goes into the decision to be controlled opposition. Thank you.